This is my screencast for the evidence for domain 2. In domain 2, 2A is about respect and rapport. And I think good evidence of respect and rapport that I have with my students, first of all, is their the feedback they gave me on their education unit. Kids said that it was the best assignment that they've ever done. They've said that they appreciated, having their own say and self-direction. They're proud of what they accomplished. Several of them thanked me for giving them this project and helping them figure out. So I think that speaks to their our respect for each other, but and also there's their respect and rapport with each other, which I think they demonstrated via their peer review and feedback. And you can see here in Kaylee and Sophia and their comments to each other, this is Kaylee's paper, and she would ask a question as a comment, and then Sophia would answer her, and then Kaylee would respond to it. And they did this sort of back and forth, responding to each other's questions, responding to each other's needs, really going above and beyond. It's not like they were going through here saying, oh, this sounds great. They were thoughtfully sort of respecting each other's goals here and ending up coming up with a good paper. Domain 2B is establishing a culture for learning, and I think the keywords in that descriptor over here are that it is a cognitively busy place. I'm on the wrong screen. The classroom is a cognitively busy place. And I think one of the best places we see that was in the education unit through one particular mini lesson. And that had to do with structuring their papers. The kids were kind of starting to freak out. They said, oh my gosh, how do I write this paper? I know it's supposed to be a letter, but how long should it be? And what should I do in each paragraph? And what should I start with? And I refused to tell them because I thought as writers they needed to figure that out on their own. So when I saw that they were kind of flipping out about it, I didn't tell them how to structure their letters, but I did teach this mini lesson that sort of gave them some tools to get them thinking about how to purposefully structure their letter. So I asked them, what moves do you need to make? Think about your situation, your audience, and your subject, and what are you going to need to do to convince them? And that meant students had to think for themselves, which was really, sort of always the goal, but I think too often we tell them exactly how to do everything. And that was a struggle for them. But this was actually kind of cool because it got them thinking like real writers, which I believe helped their rhetorical analysis abilities. Because when we rhetorically analyze text, we look at why the author did what they did. Well, for them as authors having to make decisions to do things for a specific reason, it really showed that. Domain 2C is about establishing classroom procedures. And so my first piece of evidence, for example, is my agenda. And I've got an agenda for every day of the year. I used to do this on the DocuCam, but I've started doing it on a PowerPoint. And you can see here kind of this was during our workshop, this sort of checklist over here of sort of the process, the steps that they need to at some point work through. And these kind of should have been done at this point. But every class followed during the workshop, followed a really simple, straightforward procedure, and kids knew exactly when they came in what we were going to be doing. They would, as soon as that bell rang, they would start that, the beginning of class check-in form. And they would get that done like within the first 2 or 3 minutes without me having to tell them, which was awesome. And then we would do a mini lesson, and then they knew they had workshop time, which was time for sort of all of these things when I would conference with them. And they knew at the end of class, and I would always forget to remind them that every day of our workshop we had the end of class checkout form that they would, again, automatically do. And then I would go back after the fact and look up their responses to this to figure out what was needed for next time. And that was my evidence for domain 2 on the Danielson rubric.